There's a very popular song now.
Are we singing a song?
No, you're not.
Just
give a cue. It's about the arrival of joy, or
the arrival of joy.
It sounds very God-inspired, but when you listen a bit further on, now let's just say the joy that it was not the joy of the Lord, the joy of other things.
Wow.
So it's a tricky one, because that short part in itself. You are just singing it and it's not really that bad. So for those of us who are using social media, can we still engage in such little 10 seconds of it?
So let me ask you a very candid question. When you hear a song and it's really nice, what do? You go look for the other songs.
Yes.
So what are you doing?
Publicizing.
That's all you're doing. So everything is so structured to buy you in, and then you give yourself some form of, it's not that bad. It's just this part. Then Dapo puts it up and it's playing there, the arrival of joy. And somebody's vibing like, oh, this is so cool. Who sang this? And then clicks on it. And what you have done inadvertently is to be a good messenger for a bad message. Hello guys, welcome to Let's Talk. And the idea is very simple. I get to have conversations with people literally every day, every week, asking me questions, conversations around life, pretty much everything. Usually they are looking for God's viewpoint, a biblical perspective to many issues that may be controversial or, issues that are like gray areas and all the rest. And I thought to myself that it would be nice to, bring those conversations to you. Seeing that they seem to get a lot of their questions answered and they leave with a lot of clarity. And today I got two of my dear people with me. Interestingly, I have on set Nina, who was the very first person that I spoke to about this podcast. This was about a year ago, right? 1 year ago that I spoke to her. And eventually, somehow, she's on the set with me, and then we've got... Dapo. All right, here with me. So, let's talk. Okay.
Let's talk.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm very excited to be here, as you can tell.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So, you guys have some questions, right? So, maybe we should just delve into it very quickly.
Okay. For me, I think it's very important.
Are you sure you want to go first? Or
Keep.
It seems like he has.
Yeah. No. I mean, straight to the point, really. But my first question is around music, right?
Okay.
Now, I like to keep fit.
Oh, okay. Jesus. All right.
And I have tried listening to, calming and beautiful gospel, but when you're trying to lift 50 kg, it doesn't capture the mood, So that's like, what can we?
That's very valid.
Yeah.
No, so I think you should say what you're saying. So when you're trying to lift 50 kg, what do you listen to?
Usually you need something gritty and more aggressive, which unfortunately there's not much gospel in that space. So
Okay. So the conversations around music and what can we listen to and what can't we listen to? Maybe I should hear from you, Nina.
Yes, I think it's something similar. So when I'm deep cleaning, or doing something that relates to like maybe deep work, I like to have different playlists for different moods that I am in. Like he said, not all gospel. I'm learning that there are many different musicians doing different kinds of music in gospel, but like for me, the most part is there are so many different people on my playlists for the different moods that I'm in. Is it wrong to have non-gospel music on your playlists? Like, where do we draw that line?
Okay.
If there's a line to be drawn.
Oh, there's a line to be drawn. Let's establish that. There's a line to be drawn. So I think the first things first is definition of terms. I feel like that's where a lot of believers miss it in their definition of terms. Clearly, gospel music is gospel music. That's music that speaks to what we believe in as believers, as Christians, all right, speaks to our faith. But then I think there's a bigger world of music that's called secular. Just like secular is, because secular is not the opposite of spiritual many times. It's not exactly the opposite of spiritual. Secular simply means it's not speaking directly to our faith or speaking of our faith. And so a lot of things are secular. Hospitals are secular organizations, where the environment where we work are secular organizations. And whether you like it or not, whether or not you're a believer, whether or not you're a Christian, you interface with these spaces. In the same way, I believe that there's a big set of music that is secular in nature, in the sense that it is just like you say something is apolitical, and you say something is neutral. In that sense, such songs, for example, nursery rhymes and all the rest, they are really, sincerely speaking, they are not speaking to God. They are not speaking about growing in faith. They are not edifying you spiritually as well. And you have quite a number of things along that line, that are just generally neutral in terms of content and the value that they produce. However, you have, on the other hand, within, not just songs that are not just secular, but songs that, number one, have a definite inspiration, a definite source of inspiration that is not our own inspiration. Because if you're looking at music, I always tell people there are three things to look at. Number one is the inspiration, number two is the content, and then number three is the messenger. And you have to define what comes into your soul on these three levels. Number one, where is the inspiration coming from? Number two, what is the content? And then number three, who is the messenger? Okay, so now let's take music that we call worldly music. We believe as Christians what we call worldly music. You take a song, and sometimes it, at face value, looks like, oh, it's fine and all the rest. But you want to check the artist's discography. You want to check the songs and everything that he's done before. What is the inspiration of these artists? That's the first question you want to ask. What's the inspiration of this person? Where does he get his inspiration from? Because at the end of the day, music is so powerful that it connects you to the inspiration, to the source. The idea of music is to take you to where this thing came from. All right, so music will either produce an experience, or an experience will produce music. That's why you find out that when people have breakups, then they sing love songs, they sing blues and things like that and all the rest. And that's because there's an experience that generated that rhythm in their soul, and then they sing it.
That's true.
In some other cases, it's not as though they experienced it, but the moment you start singing it, what you're saying is that take me to the experience, take me to that source, take me to that inspiration. So the first question you want to answer is, what is the inspiration of the music? That's extremely critical. Then number two is, what is the content? The content of the music, no matter how danceable and nice it is and all the rest, what is the content of the music? Is it in keeping with our faith, what we believe? What does it stir up in you? What are the emotions, the thoughts, and the ideas that it stirs up in you when you're listening to it? Now, you might say that, oh, but I'm listening to it and it's not doing, I'm just lifting my weights and all the rest and all the rest. But there's no music that is wasted music. It's deposited in your soul and stirring up something there. So you're singing about blues, you're singing about love song and all the rest and all the rest. You may not feel like it in that moment, but you are programming yourself to think in a certain way and to act in a certain way. I always give this example of years ago in America in the 90s, I believe. I was reading a story about how that some producers came together and they needed, it was interesting, it was actually prison owners, because prisons were privatized in America. I don't know if it's still the same thing, and such that if you have one prisoner, the government will pay you a certain amount of money. So it was business to have prisoners.
Yeah.
All right, so you can imagine they ask you, what is your business? I'm a prison owner. Do you get? And the idea was, so how do you get more customers? That means you have to get more people who are breaking the law. So how do you get them to break the law? They came together, and you know what they did? They called producers together, and they said, we realize that music shapes culture, and culture eventually becomes the character of the people. So they called the music producers together, and that's when black rap in the 90s, if you know black rap, and if you remember the content of black rap, it was blah blah blah, I'll shoot you in the head. It was violence, it was gangster. What was happening in the black community? Gangsters, violence. Pretty much all of these rap artists, rap people, they died in one form of violence or the other. And what happened is that in that season, because there was increased violence, the prisons were filled up. But all of it was traced back to what? Music, the kind of music that they were releasing into the airwaves. So music is so powerful. It's the only thing in the world that you accept as normal before you think about it. It's the only thing. Now, even if I'm preaching at you, you're thinking, that's not what this pastor said. That's not what I read. That's not this. But music is so powerful that you don't think of it. You just accept it because, I mean, it's vibes. That's the thing. But it's been deposited in your soul. So the three questions is, number one, what is the inspiration? Number two, what is the content? All right. And I always like to use this thing when John says that love not the world and the things that are in the world. And he describes the things in the world: the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, the lust of the flesh. What you're listening to, does it feed any of these three things? The lust of the eyes, the pride of life, the lust of the flesh. And you'd agree with me that most of what we call worldly music feeds one, two, or three of these things. Lust of the flesh, that's the biggest one. The pride of life, that's huge. Materialism. I mean, the guy is wearing a chain of maybe $1 million or so, some ridiculous amount, and all the rest. And then you have the lust of the eyes, and then the lust of the flesh. Lust of the eyes, everybody wants to own something and all the rest. I remember a story I heard some time back of a guy who painfully so ended his life. And why did he do it? It was one of these Nigerian songs, I don't know. I do not want to speak to it, but something about how that if I'm not wealthy, if I don't make money, so what's the use to life? I mean, he was in pidgin English and all the rest. And the story is that the guy meditated so much on it, because it's pretty much meditation, was playing it over and over again, got himself into a depressed state. Eventually, just like the song said, if I don't make money, so what's the use to life? He actually took his own life. The power of music. So I really believe that we should be able to differentiate. There's gospel music, which is purely what speaks to our faith and all the rest. But then we need to understand as well that there's worldly music. And sometimes it's better to go without and lack something than go for what will poison you eventually. Now, by that I mean, if you say that we don't have enough Christian songs in that space, I think it's better to go without it. I don't think we don't have enough. That's the truth. They may not have the amplitude and the volume. They may not have the popularity that these other guys have. But I believe there are a lot of people that are playing in that space steadily and all this. And, well, whether we like it or not, the church didn't help over the years as well, because all we wanted was slow worship song. And that's what we believe to be gospel song and all this. But all genres of God. All right, all genres from God. I don't believe that Satan created any genre of music. And so I believe a lot of young people need to get into, different genre of music. Whether you like, I will have what I love. I mean, I know what I love. I know how to read. But rap, it's not rap. I mean, I have a pastor he loves hardcore rap. I mean, and all.
He's a pastor.
He's a pastor. You'll be interested. You'll be shocked if I tell you his name. So I'm not going to tell you. One of our pastors, he loves hardcore rap. He tells me whenever he's designing, he's in his creative space, that's what he likes. I mean, I love it calm, soft, smooth, and all the rest in my creative space. So I personally believe, from what you said, it's about genre, that there are some genre that just help certain moods and things like that. And I believe that there are believers who play in that space. That's what I think.
I've got a question, sorry.
Okay.
I don't know.
No, you go first.
Okay, so now while I was listening to you, one of the key things you said was, trying to understand the space, the mind space it's coming from, and by that we're looking at what the other person created. Yeah. Now, it reminded me of something that happened just this Sunday, right?
Okay.
I overheard a song and it reminded me of Kanye's album. There was a bit of the music that reminded me of that. And I said to somebody in church, I was like, what would be good if we had a jam session one Sunday where we listened to Jesus is King. And I could tell straight away by their facial expression I had arrived at
crossed the line
already.
Okay.
And I could just tell. But I'm looking at an artist like that, or artists, who, yes, if we look at their previous history, they might not have been glorifying God, but maybe there was a turning point in their life. Or maybe they're just people who struggle like other Christians do, they slip up sometimes. So but maybe when they're making a particular song that is straight up glorifying God,
Okay.
would we say that that is now, you know, gospel in its genre, or would you still class that based on their antecedents as world music?
You're shaking your head. What are you thinking?
Well, personally, there are certain musicians that I feel like they will monetize anything, even God, which is amazing.
And I think that's what a lot of people miss out.
Mm.
They don't realize that Jesus is a very powerful brand, and sometimes it's basically a commercial endeavor for these people.
That's
So
true.
I always say to people, like, I mean, you mentioned someone and all the rest. I remember at the point where he was everywhere, he was going from church to church, he was having these concerts and all the rest. I asked one question: who is his pastor? What is the discipleship process that he has gone through? I'm not against you becoming a believer and all the rest, but is there any form of discipleship to give credibility to this decision?
That's true.
Or are we just involved with a commercial? Because music is so powerful, and it's a lot of money spinning. So a lot of times, some of these people get into this, and I'm not saying that's what he did. I'm just saying some of these people get into this thing, and it's basically just a money-making venture for them. If I add Jesus, I catch a new audience.
Mm-hmm.
I already have my audience, and I can add this audience to my audience. I'm reaching new demographics. You are the one thinking of church. They are not thinking church for the most part. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, for me, is the fact that you can't separate one song, because by the time you see, if once you validate one, you have validated all. Save that the person has made a clean break, and you can tell that, oh, this is, God redeeming someone. And whether we like it or not, that's even another conversation entirely. The church having the latitude, the largeness of heart, to see a Saul turn to Paul and not ostracize him, because that's what even the early church did. For the most part, they said, no, it was Barnabas that brought him and said, he's converted, he's changed. Let's help him get his footing in Christ and things like that. So there's that bit where we have to be careful not to push people away. You can see that people have their struggles. They are trying to find their way back and all the rest. However, finding your way back does not mean you become a celebrity with us immediately. No, it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that immediately you should release a song that all of us should be singing. I believe that there should be measures and systems of discipleship that helps people mature. And then when you see the fruits of maturity and all of that, then you know that this is coming from a genuine place, not just commercial, whatever it is. And sometimes even when it's coming from a genuine place, you see, because let's imagine somebody is at this height in the secular world, let's say worldly music, and then the person says, I am saved, and we believe it. Usually what happens is that we bring the same person to this height as well. But the challenge with that in the body of Christ, we bring them here because they already have some influence and all this. The challenge with that is that the maturity, the character, the discipline, the growth that is required to sustain this height is absent.
That's true.
Is absent. So we just bring them in and we place them on the same pedestal, and then you find out that character is lacking. Maybe they face a little issue here and there, and then they just run back to the things that they are used to. There's a relapse, and then we are wondering, oh, we thought it was genuine. It was genuine in some cases. It's just that we were more interested in using their gift than seeing them grow. So for me, I always ask, what has this person been singing? Because you can have somebody who just sings Jesus or sings a good song and all the rest. And we have to be careful as leaders. And leaders and people that have influence. The moment you validate or you say this is okay, people don't stop where you stop. If that boy is okay with this, then it means that we can be jamming every other thing that this person sang. That's what happens. And that's why we always try being very careful to draw the line, and just be sure of what you are giving credibility to. Yeah.
There was a question in my heart in relation to some very popular people who say that they've converted or they've...
And we're not going to mention names.
Definitely not. So they will just remain people. We won't even know if they are she's or hims or
brilliant.
Any of them. So, but they're very popular, and they say that they've converted, they believe in Jesus, but the lifestyle, for me, it didn't seem that it changed. There was any difference between the before and the after. And it makes me wonder if, like you said, it might have been genuine for them, but life happened and they may have relapsed, or there's no discipleship for them. So is it us judging them negatively to say, oh, maybe we probably should not listen to this person or listen to what they say because their lifestyle doesn't match? Or are we judging and being judgmental?
All right. So, I mean, this idea of judging and judge not and all the rest that I hear a lot of times, let's just put it out there. You're judging everything. Okay. Every day, every time you're judging. You judge whether this school is good enough for your child. You judge whether or not we are all judgmental people. Let's put it in context. But I understand when people say things like, are we judging them? No, a million times no. You see, we can separate the person from the facts. The facts are that by their fruit you shall know them. There is a lifestyle that is in keeping with a message. All right. And so you can't, because what then happens is that once you validate that, you are validating the lifestyle as well. You're saying it's okay for believers to be this way. It's okay for believers to act this way. It's okay for believers to behave this way. And that's why we have to be careful. That's why we have to be careful. Yeah.
Speaking about music, there's a very popular song now.
Okay.
Are we singing a song?
No,
don't go for the chorus.
Yeah, no. Okay. No, you won't sing it. Just give a cue so maybe they can know it. Don't sing it. Oh yeah. What?
It's about the arrival of joy, or
the arrival of joy.
Yeah, we shall call it the arrival of joy.
Yes.
Okay.
And
interestingly, just to surprise you, the first time I heard it, I was 100%, because I know what you're talking about. I was 100% sure this is a powerful gospel song.
Wow.
So I'm listening to you.
Yes, it sounds very God inspired. Let's just say the lyrics. But when you listen a bit further on, now it's let's just say the joy that it was not the joy of the Lord.
Okay.
It was the joy of other things.
Wow.
So it's a tricky one, because that short part in itself, if you are just singing it and it's not really that bad, but then the whole within the context of the rest of the song. So for those of us who are using social media, because if you want to post a picture on Instagram
it's
now,
very popular,
and you put it as your background, oh wow.
It goes wild.
It goes wild. Can we still engage in such, even though we know that, okay, we're not supporting the whole thing, we're just like, okay, this little 10 seconds of it is.
So let me ask you a very candid question. When you hear a song and it's really nice, what do? You go look for the other songs?
Yes, you listen.
So what are you doing?
Oh, publicizing.
That's all you're doing. So everything is so structured to buy you in. And then you give yourself some form of, it's not that bad. It's just this part and all the rest and all the rest. Then Dapo puts it up and it's playing there, the arrival of joy. And somebody is vibing like, oh, this is so cool. Who sang this? And then clicks on it. And what you have done inadvertently is to be a good messenger for a bad message.
Yes. That's good.
That's what you have done. So sometimes, people say things like, oh, we are being too rigid, we are being too stiff. The problem is what we are trying to achieve with our own hands, we are destroying it again. That's what happens at the end of the day. You're saying, oh, we want to win the world, blah, blah, blah. No. Maybe there's even something I think you guys should even, because I've heard it. I mean, somebody even asked me about how that they use secular, worldly tunes in churches. And even in gospel songs.
Lyrics.
So they superimpose Christian lyrics on secular music. I don't know if you've heard that before.
Yes.
So we know the tune, but like the lyrics are different.
But the lyrics are godly and
godly
all
remix.
I was somewhere, and this was so interesting. All the special songs were songs I grew up listening to. And I mean, I loved reggae growing up. My father raised me on reggae. And I'm not going to mention names. You know the king of reggae and all the rest. I mean, even till now, interestingly, all his lyrics are in my head. I mean, That's how powerful music is. I mean, I'm talking about an 8-year-old child, I'm talking about a 10-year-old boy. Till now, all of his lyrics are in my head there. So I went to this conference, this meeting, and they were singing.
Oh dear.
Now, what happens to you usually when that's the case? Do you realize that you actually many a times forget what they are singing, and you travel back to the original song?
True. True.
Now, do we know that there are many people that have come to church who are trying to break away from those things? So you can imagine that I grew up on, I mean, he's late now, Bob Marley. My father, oh boy. Do you know turntable? I don't know if you guys know turntable.
Yes.
And we'll take, do you know turntable? Jesus is Lord.
I was hoping we wouldn't
Vinyl.
notice.
Oh my God. Do you know turntable?
Yeah, vinyl.
Oh yeah, well,
I have
that,
one, right?
What
you
is
have
what
one.
is
Oh,
what is
okay.
it? For the
Do
sake
you
of the
have it?
audience that does
You
not
don't know what turntable is? All right, a turntable is a turntable. Now the idea is this: it has this long needle and all the rest. You lift it up, and then you place your vinyl records on it, and then you place it back.
Oh, okay, I know
And
what
then, oh, you know it
I just
from
don't know the name.
pictures and all.
No,
the
we
rest.
had one.
Oh, amazing!
We did.
And so we had this. There was not one of his songs we didn't have. I mean, the albums. It was a stash of them. And my father and I will sit down from about 6 p.m. sometimes till 10 p.m.
Wow.
playing one album to another, and we're singing to ourselves, just vibing and all the
Father
rest.
bonding.
Father's
Father-son
bonding
bonding.
kind of thing. So I grew up on that. You can imagine that I got saved and I realized that some of these things, yeah, some of them were social causes. But at the end of the day, not all of them were social causes. There were lots of things that, were things I didn't want in my space, because Philippians 4:8 is what judges content. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are lovely, you have to ask yourself, what I'm listening to, does it pass this test? Are they gracious? Is it virtuous? Is it something praiseworthy? Anything you're listening to? And so I went in for that conference, and they were playing the tune, but they had changed it to a Christian song. Guess what happened? Here I was seated in the conference, and while they were singing whatever they were singing, and I'm like, wow, what I'm running away from is the church that is taking me back there. And sometimes that's why when I watch musicians, instrumentalists, they pick up a chord or a part of music from a worldly song, and then they put it and the whole church goes, "Ooh!" And I'm like, what you're basically saying to people is go back and listen to the song. That's what you're basically doing. So I think music is so powerful that it's not one area to be, let's be careful. No, it's not one area. We have to be very defined in what we feed our souls with. We have to be defined and careful with what comes into us.
Now, when I first...
You look like I'm attacking a lot of things.
No, you're helping me out with a few things. Now, when I first, started taking my walk with God seriously, I really didn't understand the whole... I remember growing up, my dad would say all these songs, and I used to... What are we talking about here? I didn't go and sing, I didn't do anything. I'm just listening to what I'm listening to. But as I matured, I could definitely identify gospel and there's that. It's not even circular now. It's music that has an agenda. And I'm thinking of one that's gone really viral recently on Instagram. That's literally somebody talking about their walk with the devil, right? And
so this is different from the
Arrival of Joy.
It's different from the Arrival. This one is different. It's an American song, I think. I can't remember the artist's name, but that is the lyric. That is the lyric of the song. And it's got such a beautiful melody to it that it's being cut out and put in people's like clips and all those things. So I've been able to identify between the two extremes, one that glorifies God and one that clearly has an evil agenda. But where I am still,
the gray area
is that secular, where you talk about music that is about a cause, about freedom, about music from the 60s, about the struggle for Black liberation. And I really enjoy those kind of things. I enjoy the notion of the struggle. So I guess I'm not sure about that, because it's neither You
Yeah.
know?
So you remember I spoke about secular songs.
Yes.
And there are songs that would fit into they are not worldly music. Neither are they gospel music. They are secular songs. Now, but there are three things I told you. I said number one is the inspiration, number two is the content, and then number three is the messenger,
Yeah.
whoever it is, and all the rest. You will have people who are not necessarily singing gospel songs, but they clearly don't sing worldly songs. And secular songs, whether you like it or not, they are the voice of a generation. They are usually the voice of a generation. They are usually the voice of a cause. They are the voice of a movement, and all of the rest. And secular songs are not harmful. They're actually not harmful. But the challenge many a times is that most, maybe 70% of the time, those who do secular songs eventually go ahead and do worldly songs. That's where the problem comes in. But if you can find people who are very clean, you can tell that this is, an address. I don't. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I want to be sure that every other thing they stand for is aligns with my values. I want to be 100% sure of that. It does not mean, particularly for the secular field, it doesn't mean that they are professing Jesus as Lord, because not all of them will be Christians, just the same way you don't have all Christian doctors. Neither do you have all Christian pilots.
That's true.
So, but I don't want to get into an aircraft where the person is telling me that, I'm going to throw beads and cowrie around and things like that and all this and all this. No. Do your job professionally. You see, don't do it religiously for me. I want to be sure that you are doing it professionally. And you can have that professionalism with secular things and orders. I mean, if you say a child, you say, Humpty Donkey sat on the wall, blah, 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 blah. It's not gospel, it's not worldly. It's secular. And your child is not being influenced negatively. You don't understand what I'm saying? So there's that space for that. But it's a slippery space, and I must say, it is.
This brings me to a question that I have. So we have established gospel musicians. We know that they're gospel musicians, and lately I've been noticing there's this trend for gospel musicians to feature very popular worldly, I wouldn't even say secular artists, I would say worldly artists.
Okay.
And they'll say, oh, this person says that they're Christian, or they pray before the concert, and if you see the concert that they're going to perform, you you question what the prayer exactly is for. So those kind of artists that like, oh, definitely they are the people they told us not to listen to in the first place, and you see them feature them, and yes, the songs are glorifying God, or at least the lyrics say so. What is that? Should we listen to those kind of songs?
Well, I think the answer is not a rigid one, in the sense that sometimes, if for a poor training and theology, some of these people make some of these mistakes. And then in some cases, sincerely speaking, it's just the sheer need to expand their base. It's usually, I can tell you for free, many times when you hear those things, it's usually a commercial decision. It's based on expanding the market, reaching new people and things like that. So I'm careful to say don't listen to them, because these people obviously have proven over time that this is what they stand for and things like that. And you can't judge people based on just one thing they did. But I would speak more to them, because influence is a very dangerous thing. Influence is a dangerous thing. I mean, the power of influence is that somebody says to you, drink the cup in the water in the cup, and you're drinking it before you think of it. That's the power of influence. I mean, when God gives us visibility and influence, everything you do is validating something. Everything that you do is validating something. So now you've featured this person, and then the young believer or that person, Nina, is there watching and like, oh, okay, maybe this person is not that bad after all. Maybe I was the one that was just. Maybe I was the one that was just. And then you're pulling them into a world that God was trying to pull them from.
That's true.
So I feel like the onus, sincerely speaking, is on people that God has given some form of influence to steward it well and steward it right. Steward it well and steward it right. Does it mean that you ostracize this people? No. That's not what we are saying. doesn't mean that you ostracize them and you start behaving like you are more righteous and things like that. It's just the fact that you understand what they stand for and you know what you stand for.
My next question, it's not about music per se, but something that goes along with music, and that's dance. Now, I was once at an event where I watched somebody do like a worship dance, and I could feel it in my spirit what was going on, that there was something about what I just witnessed. Now, it was a particular religious, let's just say, religious organization that I don't align with doctrinally.
Okay.
Right. But I was wondering, as a believer,
what were you doing there?
I was hosting the event. Actually,
okay, I just want to be sure.
But they asked for a stage to do a celebration and something. I never saw the practice. I never saw anything. So I was hit with it when it happened. And I was thinking to myself, like, in those kind of things, as a Christian, how do we navigate that? And even beyond that is also the question of, there are some dance moves that, start from outside, and occasionally...
What does start from outside?
From outside,
No, but sincerely, I don't understand. Outside of the church?
Outside of the church, yes.
Is that what he means?
Yeah, like...
I have no idea what he means. I'm following him.
Okay. That's not from outside. That there are some certain dances that go with.
Yeah.
Okay. I get what you're saying.
The dance moves.
Okay.
I get what you mean.
Okay. Like, are we as Christians allowed to bring that into the house of God?
Okay. Let me put it this way. I hope you know that music is just one compartment of the arts. It's the most. I mean, that's what we know the most. But the arts, in terms of creativity, as a field, is way bigger than music. Music is there, dance is there, poetry is there. I mean, it's a wild, massive, and the common thing to all of them is the fact that they all have easy access to the human soul. All of them. Have you ever read a poem before and you started feeling like the poet? Have you read dark poems before? You read a poem and then all of a sudden you start feeling depressed. The exact same thoughts that this person has starts following you everywhere. You're wondering, why am I depressed? Simply because you interacted. You see, the most spiritual segment of life is the arts. Science and technology is not as spiritual as that. In fact, science and technology are tools for the arts. And many people don't realize this. And so what the enemy does is that movies, acting, and all the rest is arts.
Yeah.
So the enemy takes it. To shape a generation is the arts you use.
That's true.
That's what you use. Music, movies, all of those things. And then technology being media helps to amplify it. But technology in and of itself, science in and of itself, engineering in and of itself are not powerful enough to influence the human soul. It's the arts. And so the enemy does everything to pervert it. He does everything. So can you have music that has an inspiration from another source? Absolutely. The same way you can have a poem that has inspiration from another source, and you can have a song that has inspiration from another source. You can have music, dance. You can have dance. I mean, if you study a bit about traditional religion in Nigeria and all the rest, there are dances that they do to evoke spirits. So music, I mean, whatever form of art it is, you have to be careful because there's a spiritual connotation many a times to the arts that you're interacting with. And that's why, yes, you could have been in that place and all of a sudden you guys were having a normal this thing, and then somebody does something and you just realize that the atmosphere has changed just because they did a dance. And it's vice versa as well with the body of Christ. There are people that do things like dance worship and all of the rest. That you see them taking flags, interpreting a song. Maybe they are singing one gospel song, Forever You Will Be, and all the rest, and they are dancing. And sometimes you're just watching them and you seem to be able to soak in the reality and the import, the message of the song, even more than when you were just singing it. That's how powerful it is. That's why, the other part where you mentioned about we taking dance shuffles and dance steps from the world is the same thing, no? It's the same thing. It is still this lust of the flesh where we just want to enjoy, just enjoy, and we are not thinking about the depth of spirituality to the arts generally. So we take that dance shuffle and all the rest. I mean, my challenge, and I think this for me, Nina and Dapo, my biggest challenge is, why do we have to copy? Why do we have to copy? If we say that God is the height and the source of creativity and all the rest, and we carry this Holy Spirit on the inside of ourselves, the Spirit of wisdom, in Him I hid all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge, and we say that the believer today carries all of that inside him, why do we have to be the ones playing second fiddle? We take their tune and we put our lyrics on it. We take their dance shuffles and we're having our praise sessions and we have to copy some lines, some things from them. Why do we have to be that way? I think it's a slap on the face of the church. So the conversation actually should be, what went wrong? What went wrong? Why are we not the ones leading with creativity? Why are we not the ones they are copying? Why is that for the most part we are the ones copying them?
That's true.
So I think that's the bigger question. So when Christians are asking, should I not sing this? Should I not sing that? Should I not sing this? Sometimes I'm a bit worried. Like, I think the bigger question is, why is it them we want to follow? Why is it them? Why not? Why shouldn't they follow us? Well, those are my thoughts. I hope you learned anything. Thanks for joining us today. And I'll see you next week, same time. Thank you. I hope you have corrected you're making adjustments. And Nina, the lady with the mood, I have mood for deep work, I have mood for this and all the rest. I hope you're making adjustments to it. Ultimately, what you listen to is shaping you. Whether you know it or not, what you listen to is shaping you. And that's why we have to be very, very intentional with the kind of music that we consume. God bless you.